weather service as a 200-year storm event. That means there's a 1 in 200 probability every year of an event like this happening, or a 0.5% chance of an event like this. As such, it overwhelmed the storm drain and street system of the city for a period of time. Some residents were getting help from the fire department in terms of just placing pumps in their basements. A lot of basements got impacted, and so some were getting help in terms of getting water out of their basement. With the help that
for September 5th, 2017. I'm pleased to have you join us tonight. And if you would, we always begin our council meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm delighted to welcome troop number 44. Their scoutmaster is Joe Hallman, and they are from the Liberty Park area. And troop 44, I will turn it over to you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hi, I'm Chase Dolphson, and I'm from Troop 44. Color guard, attention. Forward march. Post colors. Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard dismissed. The audience can be seated.
Thank you. And can we ask the scouts to come to this microphone up here, each of you, and tell us your name and one of your favorite things about scouting? Yeah. Oh, we need the leaders too to, come and say their favorite thing about scouting. I'm sure it's these boys, but besides that.
Hi, I'm Chase Dolphson. One of my favorite things about scouting is scout camp.
I'm Matthew Ricks. Probably my favorite thing to do is just the outdoor stuff, going out and having fun in the outdoors.
I'm Talon Merrill, and one of my favorite things in Scouts is the activities we do.
Hi, I'm Thaddeus Smith, and my favorite thing about Scouts is activities too.
I'm Spencer Olson, and I just generally like it all. It's all quite fun to go visit and stuff.
I'm Joe Hallman. I'm the Scoutmaster. Our troop resides in the area just southeast of Liberty Park. Mayor Biskupski used to live in that area, and Aaron Mendenhall used to live in that area. What I love about Scouts is just seeing these young men learn some good things, learn some patriotism, and enjoy the outdoors. Thank you.
I'm Brett Free. I'm Assistant Scoutmaster. I like seeing the boys challenge themselves and do things that they haven't done before, they didn't think they could do.
Thank you so much, Troop 44. We're pleased to have you with us, and hope it sounds like you're all having a great experience in scouting. Again, I want to welcome you to our meeting, and at the beginning of each formal council meeting, we review our standards of conduct. We want everyone who is here to feel welcome and comfortable being in our meeting, and to that end, we ask that you be respectful of those who are speaking, that you avoid cheering or jeering any of the comments that are said, that you also help us take good care of this historic room by not standing on any of the furniture, leaning against walls or paintings. If you have any signage or props, make sure you don't hold them up blocking anybody's view. That's important. We also don't allow any kind of sticks, dowels, those types of things. And we ask that you, when you speak, you come to the microphone, and we'll call you by name, and you will have 2 minutes to comment to the City Council. And also, this is the dais. We ask that you don't approach the dais. If you have something to pass out, we have council staff. Council staff, can you raise your hand, please? You can give it to any of them, and they'll make sure that we get anything that you would like passed out to us. And also, we offer parking validations for you. If you parked over in the library parking lot, those same staff people can validate for you. Finally, I would like to remind you, if you have on your cell phone, please put it on the quiet mode. We don't want to have it ringing while we're in the middle of the meeting. With that, we will move on to item A4, and we will approve the formal meetings of Tuesday, August 29th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, a second by Councilmember Luke. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. We're now at item B on our agenda, public hearings, and we come to that portion of our meeting where we discuss specific items that are on the agenda. And we have a few opportunities tonight for the public to speak to us, and when I read your name, please come forward. I'll do 2 names at a time to try to keep things moving. I will in advance ask that you would, I apologize if I get your name wrong. If I've said your name wrong, will you please tell us the correct way to say it? Sometimes it's hard to read people's writings. Other times I'm just not great at getting it correct, but I will do my very best. So with that, we have the council members will collect cards. If you want to speak, fill out a card, and we will receive that from you. And we have one public hearing tonight, item B1. It is an ordinance text amendment to the FBUN2 zoning district, and we accept public comment, and we will consider adopting this ordinance amending Chapter 21A.27 Salt Lake City Code pertaining to land use regulations in the form-based urban neighborhood zoning district. This proposal would require increased setbacks and a number of other things that, if you've looked at the agenda, you're familiar with those. So we will begin with Alec Harwin, and then we will hear from Douglas White.
Hi, I'm Alec Harwin, and I recently purchased the site located at 110 West, 900 South, formerly the natural gas station site. I intend to redevelop the site into residential townhouses, and each townhouse would have an attached parking garage in the back portion of the townhouse. The parking garages would not be visible from the main streets, which are West Temple and 900 South. As you're aware, you're thinking about adopting language that would require the front 25 feet in the front of the townhouse to be any other permitted use besides parking. Well, if that 25-foot rule goes into effect, not only would I have not enough room to build the parking garage in the back of the townhouse, I wouldn't be able to develop a townhouse product there because no one wants to buy a townhouse if you can't have a place to park your car. So I'd ask City Council to consider making that minimum requirement 10 feet in the row house category. If it was 10 feet, I could build residential and or any other permitted use besides parking in the front, have enough room in the back for the parking garage. Secondly, I'd ask City Council to look at the form-based urban neighborhood 2 row house category with respect to the max units allowed in a building form, because right now the max units are 5, and I'd like to build 8. And under the new design guidelines, no building facade can be greater than 200 feet. So I believe that with that provision rule in place, it makes having a restriction on the max units allowed in a building form unnecessary. So I'd ask you to talk to the planning department about that. Thank you for everything you do, your time and your consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harwin.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could I request that we take a moment and capture those comments with a staff member so that we can, Nick over there is raising his hand, and so that we can be sure and do some follow-up. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Douglas White, followed by Scott Howell.
Not too sure Mr. Howell's here yet, but we'll hope he gets here. Thank you. My name is Douglas White. I'm an attorney representing the development at Trolley Square.
Mr. White, are you wanting to speak on the FBUN2 zoning?
Yes.
For this area? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
How it affects what we
Okay. Very
are
good.
doing there. We kind of tangled with this back in December, if some of you will recall these setbacks and step backs and what the possibilities could be there, and it's worked its way through, and here we are. I would like to caution you again that when the city employs the setbacks in particular, I did the calculations based upon what the proposals are. On a typical piece of property of 1 acre, it takes 28% of the buildable surface of that property. In addition to that, when you apply the step backs on the buildings above 30 feet, it takes off, again, more square footage of the building. Keep in mind that when you're working downtown on a limited size of property, 28% of the property and some of the building space up above, in addition to that, could be the make or break point of whether or not that building or that development actually goes into effect. And the smaller the piece becomes, as this gentleman just indicated, appreciate your comments, the more impact it has, because the minimum setback does not decrease as the property gets smaller. So the smaller your property, the more ground it takes up. There aren't any, it's probably better not to cement those in, but have some kind of sliding scale on that. Without it, you are not going to be getting, I think, what you want out of this ordinance. And let's remember the current ordinance.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. White. Mr. Howell, I don't see him here. Paul Christensen, go ahead.
I'll speak very quickly since I only have 2 minutes. My name is Paul Christensen. I own and have owned several properties along 9th South. I worked with getting the FBUN zoning, which has been very good, but the understanding was that anything that was allowed in D2 would be allowed in FBUN. That was just an understanding amongst all the people who were working on it at the time. Parking was allowed in the FBUN zone. I own what's now a parking lot just west of that gas station. And the city's taking this rabid right-wing stance, saying that because it wasn't licensed as a parking lot at the time, which of course it wouldn't be because no one was using it really, just as an adjacent or just as an incidental use, I can't now have parking there, which seems really strict to me. And because of the development that's been going on in the neighborhood, people do want to park there. People are parking there. Unfortunately, people also camp there. People store rebar there. Rebar is very hard to find out who owns it. If you've ever tried to find out, trace down the owner of rebar, there's nothing indicative about it. I've gone around the different owners in the neighborhood. People have said, okay, well, why don't you fence it or tow it, tow people. Well, that makes me a black hat property owner. I have to decide whether I'm a contributing neighbor or a non-contributing neighbor. The city's always encouraged us, I think, to be contributing neighbors. So if a restaurant has overflow that night and I'm towing people, is that really good for the neighborhood? I don't think it is. I also think that when you just put a fence around a piece of property, it doesn't really look good and it ends up creating more problems. Let me be clear, I do not support creating more surface parking lots anywhere in the city. However, for places where they already exist and have existed, please, in FBUN or it goes in Sugar House, as you have this economic development, let people park there. It's really not the end of the world. And it's better to have parking patrolled. It actually reduces crime and everything like that than just having it be vacant or towing people or fencing it off or letting it be used just for storage, which is what happens now, or for camping, which is even worse. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christensen. And is there anyone else who would like to address FBUN 2 zoning district?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the council continue the public hearing to a future council meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to continue the public hearing to a future date from Councilmember Luke and seconded by Councilmember Kitchen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. And I need to pause for a minute to get some direction. At what point do you want to speak, Mr. Chair? Okay, thank you. We will move on to potential action items. We have several. First is item C1, and this is an ordinance amending various sections of Title 21A, the Salt Lake City Code pertaining to small-scale food production. I am looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the ordinance.
There is a motion by Councilmember Penfold, seconded by Councilmember Rogers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Potential action item C2 is the ordinance for the Northwest Quadrant agricultural zoning text amendment. This is an ordinance amending various sections of Title 21A of the Salt Lake City Code pertaining to the AG Agricultural Zoning District. Yes.
I move we approve the ordinance amending various sections of Title 21A of the Salt Lake City Code pertaining to the AG Agricultural Zoning District.
Motion by Councilmember Rogers, second by Councilmember Luke. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Next is potential action item C3, ordinance for closing a portion of 800 West Street between approximately 740 North and the terminating cul-de-sac. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt an ordinance closing a portion of 800 West Street as a public right-of-way between approximately 740 North and the terminating cul-de-sac.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Rogers, seconded by Councilmember Johnston. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just want to talk about it.
Okay. Comment, sorry.
Can I make a comment that
Yes.
we received feedback several times from some carpenter union folks who had, I think, an idea worth exploring at the council level. It was too late in this particular property and process that was going on, but that I would like us to look at their recommendation that when we gift a property, a parcel, even if it's a street ownership that we have, that we consider binding the recipient to the same standards of hiring practices that the city does.
Further
Yeah.
comment?
Yeah, I spoke with the same folks last week and told them the same thing that Councilmember Mendenhall just said, that it's too late in this process for this particular piece, but that it is something that, as a council member, I'm very supportive of, and I know that we've had some preliminary discussions with staff, and we'll continue those.
Further comments, Stan?
Madam Chair, this is a question perhaps for Aaron, or for Councilmember Mendenhall and Luke. Is this something that, we've had some conversations about revisiting our ordinance regarding purchasing and construction and bidding, and is that something that would fit there, or is this something you think that is in addition to that?
It may fit there, Councilmember, but it may not, just because the ordinance to which you're speaking deals specifically with city projects.
Contracts,
Since this is
yeah.
something that is city-owned, and we're doing, some sort of a lease back to the group, it may fit there. We're going to have to, talk to our city attorneys and see where in code it would be best to put it. But again, to Councilmember Mendenhall's point, the issues that we are interested in raising are very similar to what we've already established in city ordinance for city-owned projects.
So regardless of where it goes, it may be appropriate to combine those
Correct.
discussions?
Same body of knowledge.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. There was a motion and a second, so now we will vote. All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. And our last potential action item is C4, a resolution about public benefits analysis relating to leasing an undeveloped city-owned parcel at approximately 800 North, 800 West, and adjacent city-owned cul-de-sac to the Good Samaritan Foundation. This is the
Madam
property
Chair.
we just talked about. Yeah.
I move the council adopt a resolution to lease city-owned property at approximately 800 North and 800 West to the Good Samaritan Foundation for construction and operation of a community center.
Second.
There has been a motion by Councilmember Rogers, seconded by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you so much. It's now time for the part on our agenda of comments. We're at item D, and this is questions to the mayor from the city council. Council members, do you have any questions? It looks like the mayor was with us, but needed to step out. Questions for her chief of staff, Patrick? No one else does. I do. I wondered if you could share with us the where you are in the timeline for finding an airport director. I know you have a really good interim director, and I know a search is on, but I just wondered when you think we might have a name come to the council.
Thank you for the question. We're actually beginning first round of interviews tomorrow morning, so you won't see me for the next week or so because we'll be in interviews. So
what would you say the timeline is?
This is round one. I anticipate, what is our date here? I'm hopeful that we would have someone to forward to the council by the end of the month.
Great.
If all goes as planned.
Yes, go ahead. Erin.
In that vein, how about transportation director?
I think Mr. Reberg is, if I remember right, that he is conducting interviews at this point in time. So within a couple weeks, we hope to have that filled.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. All right, and now we come to the exciting part of our meeting where we have comments to the City Council from any of you. If you want to make a comment, now you talk on anything you want. Fill out one of these yellow cards, hand it to one of our handy staff folks, and yes, hang on, thank you. I'm getting signals. We're going to take a minute, and our chair, Stan Penfold, is going to read a statement, and then we're going to ask our city attorney also to say a couple of things, and you can be getting your cards filled out if you have anything you'd like to say. So with that, I will turn it over to Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to just read this on behalf of the Salt Lake City Council. Like many Salt Lake City Council members are dismayed by the July incident involving Salt Lake City police officer and the University of Utah nurse, details of which were revealed last week. We as a body want to apologize to Nurse Alex Wubbles for all she endured. And for those here tonight to express your valid concerns and frustrations, I want to assure you we are listening. Your thoughts and perspectives will be heard and will be included in the public record. Let me be clear that all of us, all 7 council members, have the same questions and want the same answers you do. We stand united in our belief that it is unacceptable. It was especially frustrating in light of all the progress the police department has made recently on de-escalating training. This is a big step back on those efforts, which is disappointing. While the day-to-day operations of the city, including personnel matters, are the mayor's responsibility, the council has an obligation to be involved in issues that have such a significant impact on our city residents. There are internal, independent, and county investigations underway. As these processes unfold, the council will be taking our own hard look at the city's relevant ordinances and policies to determine what changes are needed to prevent needless and regrettable incidents like this from occurring again, and to make sure that all those in the city and police administration have the resources they need. As elected representatives, we must answer to our constituents when public trust in government is undermined, especially when it involves something as critical as public safety and our relationship with hospital and emergency professionals. We take our oversight role very seriously and intend to be deliberate about seeking answers over the next several council meetings. Specifically, we want answers for ourselves and for the public to questions such as, how could this incident occur and how can we ensure this never happens again? We are committed to following through. We know we work for you, and we're grateful that so many of you are here to hold the county accountable. Thank you very much. I've also, as a council chair, asked the city attorney to help us understand the process for review and discipline of a public employee. Margaret?
Sure. So my understanding was that the council was getting a lot of
Could
questions.
I be rude and interrupt just for
Yeah.
Margaret Plain, city attorney? Thank you.
Margaret Plain, hi. I think the council and the mayor's office, the city in general, are getting a lot of questions about, why doesn't the mayor or the police chief just go ahead and fire the detective or the officers who are viewed as having acted inappropriately in this incident. I think what's important to understand is that under state law and constitutional law, city employees have protections, and these are called due process protections. That means that there's a process that you go through, including giving an employee an opportunity to respond to allegations against him or her before you take any employment action. So that's what's happening in this case. The internal affairs investigation is, going through the normal process. The employee gets an opportunity to respond under state law. The city also has a union contract, and we are bound to follow that. So we're very cognizant of that. This is really important because we've seen other Utah cities and cities nationwide where those procedural protections have been ignored. The consequence of that is that the officers are often ordered to be reinstated. Reinstatement means that when the officer comes back to work, they're entitled to all of their back pay and benefit that they didn't get during the time that any litigation played out. That's obviously, hard on the employee, hard on the morale of the department, and it's also very expensive. So these procedural protections, they take a little bit of time, not too much, I think, but they are something we're bound by under state law, constitutional law, and again, in this case, we also have a union contract that we need to be sure to comply with.
Thank you so much. We hope that gives some clarification for everyone, and thank you, Chairman Penfold, for reading that for us. Do you have a
I have a
comment,
question,
Councilman?
I have a question to Margaret. Can you articulate a little bit more clearly for the general public what the city's internal process is like for, maybe without all the confidential details, but how is Salt Lake City Corporation proceeding to investigate this, and what are some of our procedures that you might be able to help us understand?
Sure, Council Member. I can speak generally. The process involves, talking to witnesses, talking to those who are involved, really it's an investigation, right? So if any city employee, I'm not just talking about a police officer, if there's an accusation of misconduct, the city has an obligation to go through that process, talk to people, and then give the employee an opportunity to respond. And that's the next step in, that's the step before the chief or the department director makes an ultimate determination about the employment action. The important thing to understand is not only do employees have a legal right to this pre-termination process where they get an opportunity to respond to a meaningful investigation and allegations against them, they also have a statutory right to a post-termination process. And you guys know those processes as the Civil Service Commission that Salt Lake City has and the Employee Appeals Board that Salt Lake City has. So those are two pieces of it. Again, they're part of state law. The investigation is really, it's talking to people, finding out what happened, and then giving the employee an opportunity to respond before the department head makes a decision.
Now, how does this process interact with the criminal investigation that the DA is conducting?
They're totally separate and independent investigations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I was just so looking forward to hearing from all of you that I jumped the gun. But now it actually is time for us to take general comments. And we'll call people based on the comment cards that have been turned in. Remind you, you have 2 minutes, and you can't combine time with anybody else. And as a reminder, please create a civil and respectful environment. Be respectful of other people's comments, no loud noises or disruptions. Don't block the view of others with signs or other items, and allow council staff to pass out any handouts you might have. We'll begin tonight by hearing from Amir Cornell, followed by Alan Sanderson.
Good evening. Don't count for what I'm saying to Margaret. Jeff Payne just got fired from Gold Cross. Okay? Now, let's get to the point. Mr. Kitchen, about a month ago, I went to see a play called Book of Mormon. I hope I don't insult anyone. On my way to the Eccles Center, there was no panhandler, none. At 10:30 when I get out, 22 of them, they were there. All of them, they have a backpack. I called to the center. They said these people, they don't stay at the homeless shelter. Turns out to be, they just go stand when the people, they get out. And it's going to happen the same thing a month from now when Vivint Center or Delta Center going to be open. When you go to see the game, none of them are there. At 10:30, when everybody is getting out, all of them is going to be there. Now, there is a solution for that. I was in Phoenix, Arizona. At the Phoenix, Arizona, they have a Phoenix Suns. They have a sign on every those property to say this is a private property, no soliciting, no nothing. I would like to ask you, you ask somebody to stop and put in the sign around Delta Center, put in the sign around Eccles Center, or Utah Symphony Orchestra. Means these people, they are not homeless. They just go there with the sign. And that's all, I'm asking. And we still haven't seen the ID of these homeless people.
Time.
All of them, they come from out of state. If you look at their ID or state ID. That's all I have. And thank you for being advocate for these people. Okay? And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. We'll now hear from Alan Sanderson, followed by James Berenson.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for taking comments. I think this will play very well into what Councilman Penfold just said and the city attorney. So recently, we've had the incident at the hospital, but about 3 years ago, we had Geist the dog shooting. One of the things that has come to my mind, and what I hear a lot from the public, is why is this officer still on duty? Right now, within the way the process works, the only time an officer is placed on administrative leave, to my knowledge, is when they fire their weapon at a human being, whether they hit them or not. They will automatically be placed on administrative leave. My question has been, it would seem to help with public trust that any time an officer shoots their weapon, comes up against anything in terms of their shooting, if they are subject to an internal investigation, whether they are subject to the Civilian Review Board, they are automatically placed on leave. Right now, the recent statement is we take that on a case-by-case statement. So what that does is put the chief in a very bad position in that if he wants to pull an officer from the field because of the incident, such as at the hospital, it can look like he's not supporting his officers. If the policy is flipped the other way and that they're automatically placed on leave, then the chief can have a prerogative to review the case and say, hey, I think this is a fine case. We're going to let this person go back onto the job and be there. So what we need to do is look at flipping the policy of when an officer is placed on leave. They immediately should go on leave until it's determined otherwise. I think that would help a lot with the public and the way to de-escalate a little bit of the public confidence in what's going on the police force when things like this happen. I'll be making a request for an appointment to the mayor's office and Chief Brown to your office to discuss this further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanderson. James Berenson, followed by Dave Iltis.
Greetings, comrades. Thank you for allowing me to address the Politburo. Why is it that you can't interact? I saw Mr. Luke interacting with his Goldman Sachs lobbyist buddy when she came up to speak. Am I not? Are the plebs not like the pseudo superiority that you all think you are, so you don't have to interact with us? This is just stupid to sit up here and ask questions and receive no answers. If I didn't have the knowledge, I wouldn't want people doing it either. Which brings me to this point. I challenge the person from District 1, 3, 5, 7 to have a public debate in a library in your district. We each choose 3 topics. We can debate right there and then have the constituents in those districts bring up other topics. I doubt you'll do it because, oh no, your covers might get pulled. And then you have the slavery. Slavery, as I've come to understand it, is imposing your will upon other people. You up here impose your will with these CO2, building regulations, things like that. Why not let people act in their own best interest and have to stick your fingers in everything? This is, after all, a democratic republic, is it not? Or have we switched from the United States of America to the Socialist States of America, and you just forget to notify us mere plebs? I tried to file a complaint with your office to get the books audited. $237 million for a budget for 1 year seems extremely high to me. I've done the math, and that equates to $166,666 with a remainder of 8. I don't know where the 8 would go, per square mile per month. Yet our cities look like crap. You know, the roads are a menace. We got graffiti all over the place. There's not enough police to protect the citizens in those things. You want a linebacker tackle me? Do it, boss. I already know you're a red guard working for these commie bastards. But you know, I filed a request with your office. I called back a week later, and you know what? They said there was no request taken. So that, to me, sends, you know, there's some kind of shady stuff going on there. If you file
Mr.
a
Berenson, you want to
request-
wrap up, please?
Of course I do. I have no freedom of speech. I'm not an American citizen. Obviously, I'm
We
some kind
appreciate
of
having
French
heard
guy.
from you. We welcome you each time you come, and you get 2
Oh, I
minutes
know.
just
And
like
then I get
everybody
threatened with
else.
physical violence, incarceration, exile.
Can I ask you to please take your seat?
Why? Last week, some dude went on for
2
3
minutes are up,
minutes, for
and I
3
appreciate
minutes
your
about
being
being run
here.
over by a bicycle. The guy after him went on for 4 minutes about a wreck he was involved in. You have these certain set of rules, but when people are telling you
Mr.
things you
Berenson,
don't
may I
like,
ask you to please
that's when
take
the
your
2
seat?
minutes take effect. If I was up here crying about a car wreck, I'd probably get 5 minutes like it happened last week.
I told you to finish up your thought, and then please
Why
take
don't
your
you call
seat.
your hired goons and tell them to escort me.
I
You
will in
have
a
no
minute, but I'd
problem
rather
doing that
not.
before.
I'd-
See, now we see the true colors.
Mr. Berenson, I'd like you to just finish your thought, please.
Why is that?
I'm trying to be polite and have you finish your thought. Do you have anything else you'd like to say in the next 5 seconds?
How do I get an appointment with you, Ms. Plain, to file a formal request
Can I
to
ask
have
you
the
to
books
please take your
audited?
seat? May
You just
we
tell
please-
you just tell me to finish my thought, and then I do it, and then you tell me to take my seat.
Well,
What
you
kind
asked
of
for a
reverse
long answer.
psychology is
You
this?
asked for a long answer. I gave you 5 seconds. Your time is up. Please sit down.
Yes, dictator.
Thank you very much. Dave Iltis.
Hello. My name's Dave Eltis. I'm with Cycling Utah. Was coming to you, it's been a few weeks since this decision by the mayor, but it's really time, it's actually more than time for Salt Lake to adopt a more progressive transportation policy. The decision that the mayor made on 21st South to not follow any of the plans that were in place was absolutely appalling and short-sighted. It was made without context. It was made in a manner that listened to some of the neighbors in the neighborhood, but not the overall direction of the city, and as far as I know, the direction of the council. Salt Lake's made great strides in passing ordinances to decrease carbon emissions, but the transportation policy is still operating in about 1972. We had an opportunity for a safer street, a people-friendly street, and Salt Lake City blew it. You have an unsafe street, you have an incomplete street that's safer for no one, not for motorists, not for bicycles, not for pedestrians, and especially not for the people who live on 21st South. Mayor Biskupski chose to take an outdated approach. She said that the street could be revisited down the road, you know, to look at a comprehensive solution, but that's not how streets work in Salt Lake City. Streets work in piecemeal, and they get repaved in sections, and this means that we are not going to see a decent street for 10 to 15 years down the road unless something changes drastically. So we have no transportation director. Apparently we're doing interviews, but no sign that we're actually going to appoint somebody, and if they are they going to be a progressive voice, or are we going to go backwards in time, which is what we've been doing since the mayor has taken office. The Bicycle Advisory Committee has vacant seats, TAB has vacant streets, and we need to update the Complete Streets
Time.
ordinance so that stuff like this doesn't happen anymore, and that repaving projects are subject to Complete Streets as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. That was the final card that I have. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? And if you would, you can raise your hand and then come up and fill out the card afterwards. Okay. If there is not anyone else, that concludes the, you come on up. Thank you, and tell us your name again.
Hi, I'm Chasey Dolphson. I know that there have been lots of wars lately, but really, are they our enemies? We should be friends with them. The only people who are our enemies are terrorists. The whole world should work together to fight those terrorists. Because think about it, we're getting nowhere if we don't unite. It's only maybe 1 million against 100, but think about it. It could be 2 billion against 100 if all the countries just unite. And the land, you can share your land, there's nothing wrong with it. And I think the world would be more peaceful. There'd probably be less deaths. There's tons of deaths because of wars, and there'd be less if we just share the land with our friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think our future is bright when we have able young men like that. Thank you. We have one new business item, E1, to consider, and it is a resolution approving commissioner appointments to the Central Wasatch Commission Board. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the City Council adopt the resolution appointing Park City Council Member Andy Bierman and Utah Department of Transportation Executive Director Carlos Braceras to serve as additional commissioners on the Central Wasatch Commission.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Kitchen, a second by Councilmember Luke. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. We have no unfinished business items. We
Madam
move-
Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of item G10, board appointment of Sean Umapeg, who will be rescheduled for a future meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Penfold, second actually by Councilmember Mendenhall. Should beat you on that one, Councilmember Rogers.
Happens.
Is there any discussion about the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes and we adopt the consent agenda. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Alan.